Welcome back to PageKey. Today I'm sharing some lessons learned about web apps, cookies, and using a reverse proxy. This is all part of building the PageKey unit, so hope you enjoy. So really quickly, some progress since the last video. I switched the actual unit itself, the operating system, over to Debian instead of NixOS. I was having lots of issues with dynamically linked libraries. NixOS does something differently, and you have to build on NixOS to run on NixOS. So for me, it was much easier to just switch to Debian for now at this current early stage. The UI, I have working login and logout using Fast API and Vite. I have a reverse proxy that will hopefully enable multiple domains to be served from the same box, and a future experiment will be using Caddy instead of Nginx. And deploying the front end and back end as a single executable makes things much simpler using PyInstaller. So some decent progress. Now let's get into the technical details that might help you with your project. So this is the architecture that I see in my head, at least for this. So you have your browser making a request over to the reverse proxy. This would be 443 in production, of course, HTTPS. The HTTPS is terminated by the reverse proxy. So if you have certificates, Nginx takes care of them, and then Nginx talks to your front end and back end over HTTP. So it's much simpler for these services not to have to deal with their own SSL configuration. So the reverse proxy checks, and anything that is on slash login, slash for the top level, will go to Vite, serve the front end, and you get to see a nice UI. Anything with slash API in front of it goes to the back end, Fast API, and serves back machine readable responses, JSON, all that good stuff. And then these can talk to each other via the browser. So I figured I'd share what I thought were the key code snippets for both sides of this. So in the backend, you have the Fast API cores config here, and you have to allow the origin for localhost. There are a lot of little nitpicky things about cookies that will throw things off. You need allow credentials, and you can allow all methods and headers, but I've had experiences where if the origins are star, if you allow all origins, sometimes the secure cookies fail to set because your browser just drops it as a potential security risk. So this is one good snippet. Now here's what the login route looks like. Right now, it's just hard-coded credentials. The username is admin, and the password here is admin pass, and it's using bcrypt to hash that password. So if we didn't want to hard-code that into the program, we could store the hashed password in a file, and then this admin password would not actually exist anywhere. It would just be the hashed password, which is the most secure way to do passwords. I didn't do too much with this yet. We would want to actually set some kind of token. Right now, the value of the token is literally hard-coded because I was just trying to get cookies working. I was trying to isolate it out. So if you're interested in how cookies work and not about how to make a JWT or hash passwords or anything like that, maybe this is helpful. Fast API makes it pretty simple. You just set the cookie, you set the key, the value. HTTP only is true and secure is true. This can be very challenging to get right in dev when you're not using the reverse proxy, but when you do use the reverse proxy, everything is going to the same domain, even if it's a self-signed dev certificate, and you're using HTTPS. Otherwise, you would have to change these settings when you're in development and then change them again when you're in production. It becomes very hard to test. So if everything goes through the same domain, your domain and ports, you're not switching ports, that's considered cross-site, and then a lot of browsers will block it. So if you go through the reverse proxy, it just makes everything easier, and you can use the exact same settings that you would use in production when you're testing in dev. So once you do the previous screen with the login and the user has that cookie set, it's very simple to do protected routes where you're only allowed to see them if you're logged in. Here's an example of that. You just specify unit token, and it's built into Fast API that you can just say that it's a cookie with that name. And if it's not there, you just fail and say you're not logged in. Otherwise, you say you are logged in. With logging out, all you have to do is delete the cookie, and we'll see maybe in the demo that basically Fast API just sets the cookie to a blank string when you do this. So it's pretty cool to check out the actual responses going back and forth from the browser. Now, when you click login and actually make the request, it's not too fancy, but there are a few little gotchas here as well. We make it post. If you don't have the headers, Fast API will have trouble parsing it or figuring out what you're trying to send over with the body here. And the credentials include is probably the most important part here, because without credentials include, that secure cookie will not get set. And that cookie is secure, by the way, because this part, JavaScript, cannot access that cookie. The browser prevents JavaScript access to it, which is better because then you can't tamper with it as much. Now, example of a protected route on the front end, my homepage here checks that you're logged in. It just goes to this API check route, and if it's okay, then, or rather if it's not okay, it redirects you to the login page so you can log in. Otherwise, it will make that request to the actual protected route and get you the JSON and set the screen properly. A little painful, but the proxy is a third process that you're running in your terminal when you're doing your testing. And there are some important settings in here. Honestly, ChatGPT helped me a bit here, I'm not going to lie. The piece here, especially, I will say, was some LLM action going on. But apparently these three configuration items are required if you're going to be setting cookies or using WebSockets. So Vite with its hot refresh is using WebSockets, and then cookies obviously are needed to do this whole login flow. So you have the front end piece of the config, the back end piece of the config, and then an HTTP redirect. So, I mean, you could pause and look at this. There's not too much to say here. Now I'll do a quick demo of this whole setup for you. Okay, so I'll just show you how I spin everything up first. So I have this run script in each of the folders. So if I cd into the back end, I can run /run. You can see here it's just running main.py, which kicks off fast API using Uvicorn. So we see that started up. Next, if we check out the front end folder, that's just a simple npm run dev, but I will use my run script for that. And Vite is started. And now that both of those are done, we can check out the reverse proxy. It was a little challenging to get this to run without using a daemon so that I could run it just one-off as needed. I had to pass in the current working directory as the prefix. I had to use dev.conf and turn daemon off. I also used makecert to create some dev certs and install them on my system so that they're trusted. It didn't really quite work, but fair enough. And then I have the access logs that are local due to this -p. So that allows me to run Nginx as a user. I do /run. It gets a PID file, but nothing actually gets outputted here. It's all going into those log files. So everything is up now. And according to our dev.conf here, I have to go access 4443 on localhost, and I should see @ my front end, /API, my back end. Okay, so I opened up localhost 4443, and it tried to do HTTP, so I have to specify HTTPS, and I get yelled at because the cert's not trusted. Oh well, I proceed. And now here's my Vite app. It redirects me to log in immediately, and if I type in admin and admin pass, it will log in. We'll see that in 1 second, but first let's look at the back end. I have this version route. It's not protected or anything, but you can see same address, and yet back in VS Code, the back end is receiving this request, the front end is receiving this one. Next, let's pop open the console here, and before I send this request, what we're going to do, we're going to keep an eye on the network here, and we're also going to keep an eye on application, which is where the cookies are set. So currently, I have no cookies set. I'm going to hit login. And now my unit token is set to some secure value. And if we expand this table, you can see its localhost path is /, expiration is session, HTTP only is checked, secure only is checked, same site as lax. So this all worked. And if this doesn't work, if you're not using the reverse proxy, if you messed up some of these settings, then you're going to see a little icon here that says that it discarded this token. As it turns out, I canceled the redirect that occurred. So we see the request worked. And if we check out the request, nothing special there. The response headers are the magic here. This is where the set cookie occurs. And this would be ignored if some of these settings were messed up, but it did work, so that's awesome. You can also see it's coming from Nginx, not coming from Fast API. So it successfully passed on the cookies. And for future requests, we'll see that our browser automatically includes this cookie when we're making certain requests. So if we go home, so all these requests that we're making are setting that cookie now. You can see the request headers includes now this cookie unit token equals some secure token. But I'm not sure how to access cookies through JavaScript anyway. If we tried to access this token because it's secure and HTTP only, it would not be accessible through JavaScript. So you can't tamper with that cookie or steal it. So what's the next thing to do for this as a product? I'd love to get the website app working, get some valid certs via Let's Encrypt, and then have the admin UI and website on separate domains. which would allow you to host your own website and then have an admin UI where you log in and manage your website. So this becomes kind of a local Squarespace that you can manage entirely yourself on this device, and then host it for real and put this at PageKey.io as the actual hosting service that I'm using for my website. But I've also been thinking, is it time for a pivot? Is the market too small for people that would even be interested in this? And should I be giving more and asking less? Should I be making lessons like I did before instead of just bluntly sharing what I'm working on right now, which might not be useful to you? Maybe I should be thinking more about how I can give back via education. So stay tuned. Might be focusing more on education and research as part of PageKey. But we'll see. We'll see if this unit product launch goes anywhere or if I just go back to making more educational content. Either way, if you're interested, you can sign up for more info about the PageKey unit. There's a mailing list, and you can also pre-order one. And if you do pre-order one, I will figure out a way to get it to you or refund you. So you can scan this code. Of course, my face is in the way. I don't know how to fix that. Let's see. Yeah, not sure. So maybe just type it into the browser. Anyway, that's it. So hope you enjoyed.